Have you ever wondered why two people can live through the same life, but one always sees the light, while the other sees only shadows? It could be the same rainy day. One person sees the inconvenience. Another sees the peace. What makes us see life so differently? Over the years, I've spoken to people of all ages, and no matter their background, I've heard the same question echo over and over again. How do I find peace when life itself feels so chaotic? It's a question we've all carried at some point, especially those of us who've lived through loss, heartbreak, sleepless nights, and things we simply couldn't control. But if you could just pause just for a moment and really listen to your heart, you might realize something powerful. Peace has never lived outside of you. It's not in the perfect situation or in someone else's approval. Peace begins with how we meet our thoughts, our emotions, and our reality day by day. As the Buddha taught, with our thoughts, we create the world. So if we learn to plant seeds of patience, kindness, and wisdom, even in an imperfect life, something beautiful can begin to bloom from within. Today, we'll walk together through a gentle, mindful journey, where each reflection invites us back to a place of calm, soft, steady, and awake. Now, I don't know if you're watching this in a quiet morning or right in the middle of a busy, stressful day, but if you're here looking for a little peace amidst the noise, then maybe what we're about to explore is exactly what your heart has been waiting for. You see, I often hear this from people in their 42nd, 52nd, even 72nd. I don't need anything big, Master. I just want peace, that's all. But then, in the same breath, they'll whisper, but the more I try to find peace, the more life seems to shake me. And I gently smile and say, that's because you've been looking for peace in the wrong place. Most of us believe that we'll only feel calm when the chaos ends, when the pain stops, when everything falls into place. But the Buddha never said peace comes when the storms are over. He said peace comes when we learn not to be swept away by the storm. In the Anguttara Nikaya, the Buddha said, just like a lotus flower blooms untainted in muddy water, the wise remain pure amidst the suffering of the world. A lotus doesn't wait for clear water to bloom, and we don't need a perfect life to find peace. I once met a woman in her 60s, a single mother. She lived in a small apartment in an older part of California. Life hadn't been easy for her working, raising a child, supporting her aging parents from afar. But what struck me most wasn't her struggle, it was her smile. Soft, steady, even though her eyes carried the weight of many years. I asked her, how do you stay so calm in the middle of all this? She looked at me and said something I'll never forget. I just stopped letting everything pull me away. Life is still the same, but I'm not the same anymore. That's the heart of what the Buddha reminded us. Peace doesn't come from a quiet world. It comes from a quiet mind. Think of your mind like a lake. The wind will always come. The surface will ripple. That's natural. But if the lake is deep enough, even the strongest wind can't disturb the stillness below. Our mind is just like that. If we live on the surface, always reacting, always angry, always afraid, then even the smallest thing can throw us off. But if we live from a deeper place, grounded in awareness, anchored in the wisdom of impermanence, then we'll see that not everything needs to be resisted. Some things just need to be released. One of my students once told me he got angry every time he watched the news. The injustice, the negativity, just a few headlines were enough to ruin his entire evening. I asked, then why do you watch it every day? He laughed awkwardly, because I'm afraid I'll fall behind if I don't stay updated. I smiled and said, but you've already fallen behind your own peace. We can't control the wind, but we can learn when to fold the sails. We can't control everything that happens, but we can choose how we move through it. With mindfulness, with compassion, with clarity. In the Dhammapada, the Buddha said, "No one saves us but ourselves. No one can, and no one may. We ourselves must walk the path." Peace, then, is not found in the absence of pain. It's found in the presence of wisdom. And that wisdom says, no matter how messy life gets, you can always return to stillness. Not by changing the world, but by learning not to cling to it. So let me ask you, are you still waiting for life to calm down before you can feel peace? Still hoping the storm will end before you sit in silence? If so, maybe this is your moment to return home. Not to a place, but to a way of being. A way of breathing mindfully. Of releasing what no longer serves. Of choosing silence over reaction and kindness over control. And little by little, you'll see, the world may still be the same, but you are no longer the same because you've chosen a different path. A path where peace isn't something you chase. It's something you learn to carry within you no matter what. You know, if you've ever stepped into a truly quiet temple where the wind whispers through old tiled roofs and every step on the stone floor feels like you're walking into something sacred, you'll notice something right away. Not everyone is allowed to enter at just any moment, and not every sound is welcome in that space. Why? Because that place is a sanctuary of stillness. And to protect its sacredness, the entrance must be carefully guarded. Now I want you to imagine your mind as a temple. One even more precious than any temple in the world because it lives inside you. And every thought that enters it leaves a trace. But strangely, while sacred places in the world are protected with care, the doorway to our own mind is often left wide open. Every day, we let all sorts of things rush in. Anxious news, negative words, shallow conversations, and endless noise. We grab our phones the moment we wake up, letting social media set the tone for our emotions before we've even had the chance to ask ourselves how we actually want to feel that day. And then we wonder, why does my heart feel so heavy? Why can't I find peace? The Buddha once said in the Samyutta Nikaya, like a gatekeeper who watches the entrance to a city, the one who guards the senses lives in peace, unshaken by the world. It sounds ancient, but it's more relevant now than ever. The mind cannot rest if we don't choose what we allow in. Think of it like your home. You can't keep your house clean if you keep letting muddy shoes walk through the door. The mind is the same. It must be guarded from the dust of the world. I remember a lay student of mine in his early 50s who struggled with insomnia for years. He worked in the news industry surrounded by distressing stories, day in and day out. One day at the temple, he told me, "Master, I meditate, I listen to Dharma talks, I chant, but I still feel uneasy inside." I asked him, "What's the first thing you take in each morning?" He hesitated. "Well, I check my phone, news updates, global issues, market drops." I smiled and said gently, "Then you're beginning your day with fear." You see, the mind is fertile ground. Every single thing you expose it to becomes a seed. And just as the Buddha taught, with a corrupted mind, suffering follows like a cart follows the ox. But with a purified mind, joy follows like a shadow that never leaves. So when we consciously choose what enters, when we become the gatekeeper of our own mind, we begin to plant seeds of peace, of clarity, of compassion. But how do we protect the gates of the mind? Not by shutting ourselves away from the world, or by pretending problems don't exist, but by making intentional choices. Instead of checking your phone right after waking up, try sitting for just a few quiet moments. Breathe, Listen to your heartbeat. Instead of letting the noise of the world drown, you play a short Dharma talk, or listen to calming music, or simply let silence be your first teacher. Instead of getting pulled into gossip or negativity, choose to be with someone who listens deeply and speaks kindly. Guarding the mind is an art, and more than that, it's an act of compassion. Compassion for yourself. Because when your mind becomes more peaceful, those around you feel it too. A mother with a calm heart doesn't raise her voice in frustration. A father with a clear mind doesn't lose the trust of his family. An elder, even living alone, becomes a quiet light for the next generation just through their gentle presence. You don't need to withdraw from the world to find peace. You only need to be mindful of what's worthy of entering your inner temple. And each time you choose wisely, you take one more step on the path toward awakening, not through theory, but through the practice of daily living. So today, let me ask you, what have you allowed into your mind? A troubling headline that weighs you down all morning? A negative comment that keeps echoing in your thoughts? Or was it a mindful breath, a soft pause, a smile just for yourself? Guarding your mind isn't something lofty or distant. It begins with a simple question. Is this truly worthy of taking space in my heart? And if you keep asking that, if you begin to let in only what is peaceful, kind, and true, then your life will start to shift, gently but deeply. Because when the mind is clear, the world you see becomes clearer. And when the mind is calm, life itself becomes more peaceful. There are wounds that don't bleed, yet they ache quietly in the heart for years. And often, the person who hurt us has no idea what they left behind. They've forgotten. They've moved on. They're living a different life now while we're still here, still replaying the same story in our minds like a tape stuck on repeat. Many people come to me, carrying a sorrow they thought had long passed. But when I gently touch on it, their eyes fill with tears again. They say, "Master, I just can't forgive. I don't know why I still think about them, about what they did. I don't want to be angry anymore, but I also don't know how to let go." And I usually respond with a very simple question. Who do you think forgiveness is for? There's a long pause, and then, almost in a whisper, they reply, "For them, the other person." I smile softly and say, Forgiveness is a gift you give to yourself first. Dear friend, in the teachings of the Buddha, forgiveness is not just a moral gesture. It is a path toward liberation. We don't forgive because the other person deserves it. We forgive because we no longer want to carry the burden. In the Dhammapada, the Buddha taught, hatred does not cease by hatred, but only by love. This is the eternal law. We've all been hurt. Maybe it was by words, actions, or even someone's cold indifference. And the pain stays with us not only because of what happened, but because we carry it around every single day. The person who never apologized may still be at peace. But if you haven't forgiven them, you are the one still living inside the wound. I remember once teaching a Dharma retreat in Texas. An elderly woman came up to me, tears streaming down her face. She held my hand and said she hadn't spoken to her sister in almost 20 years, all because of a misunderstanding at their mother's funeral. I kept waiting for her to apologize, she said. But now I'm afraid. What if I die first, carrying this regret with me to the grave? I held her hand gently, looked into her eyes and said, "You don't have to wait for anyone to speak first. You only need to open your heart. Spiritual freedom doesn't depend on others. It begins the moment we decide to stop and to let go." People often mistake forgiveness for forgetting or for allowing others to hurt us again. But that's not what it means. Forgiveness isn't denying that the wound happened. It's looking at the wound with clear understanding and realizing that if you keep holding it, you're the one bleeding every day. Forgiveness also doesn't mean you have to go back to the relationship or pretend nothing happened. It's not about being close to the person again. Forgiveness is a quiet, inner journey. It's the moment you say to yourself, "Yes, I was hurt, I was angry, but I no longer wish to live in that space." Someone once asked me, "Master, how do I know I've truly forgiven?" I said, "When you can remember what happened without it hurting, when you can send that person peace, not because they deserve it, but because you deserve to be free." The Buddha taught that karma is like a river. When we hold on to anger and resentment, we're creating new streams of karma filled with negativity. But if we stop the cycle, if we choose not to retaliate, not to hate, we break the flow and step into a different direction. There's a story in the scriptures about a monk who was deeply insulted and mocked by someone in public. But instead of reacting, he simply bowed his head quietly. Later, when asked why he didn't respond, he said, "The man offered me a gift of anger. I did not accept it, so it still belongs to him." You see, forgiveness is not accepting the gift of hatred. It's protecting your mind from being stained by the actions of others. Life is short, and the older you get, the more clearly you'll see. The things that once made us furious, they were never worth sacrificing our peace. So if there's something in your heart you still haven't forgiven, I invite you to sit down today, take a deep breath, and ask yourself gently, do I really want to carry this with me for the rest of my life? If the answer is no, then right now, without waiting for anyone else, you can begin the journey of release. Forgive not because they deserve it, but because you deserve peace. Dear friend, we are living in a time where everything moves so fast. News, technology, expectations, all rushing us along like a strong wind, pulling us farther and farther from the simplest truth. Just recognizing what we already have is a gift in itself. I once sat with a man in his 60s on a rainy afternoon. He told me, "Teacher, I've lived a long life. I've had moments of wealth and moments with nothing at all. But no matter what I have, I still feel like something is missing. Like there's this empty space inside me that never quite fills." I listened, then gently asked him, "This morning when you woke up, did you hear the birds sing?" He looked puzzled. "Yes, but what's so special about that?" I smiled and said, "It is special because not everyone who woke up this morning still had the strength to hear the birds. Some woke up in a hospital bed, some couldn't hear anymore, and some didn't wake up at all." Gratitude is not about asking for more. It's about realizing you already have so much. In the Buddhist teachings, gratitude isn't a surface emotion. It's a deep and sacred state of mindfulness. Gratitude quiets the endless hunger of desire. It calms the restless mind. And when the mind no longer chases, it becomes still. And that stillness is where wisdom begins to rise. In the Anguttara Nikaya, the Buddha taught, one who is ungrateful, forgetful of kindness, is far from the path of spiritual growth. Why? Because a mind without gratitude always feels empty. It always wants more. It looks outward instead of inward. But a grateful heart feels full, feels enough, and turns inward to nourish peace. I know there are days when your body aches, when your memory isn't what it used to be, when family visits are rare, and your children or grandchildren are too busy with their own lives. There may be moments when you feel invisible, left behind. But friend, if you can still breathe, You still have one more day to live with gratitude and inner peace. Start small. The rustling of a leaf outside your window. The last rays of sunlight shining into your living room. A warm cup of tea in your hand. Or simply a slow, deep breath. You don't need a grand reason to feel grateful. Life itself, in every moment, is already a miracle. Once, during a gratitude meditation at a Dharma center in the West, an elderly woman in her 70s came to me in tears. She held my hand and said, "Teacher, I've lived most of my life without realizing. I still have so many things to be thankful for, even when I thought I had nothing left." That was a beautiful awakening, and it didn't come from gaining anything new. It came from seeing clearly she already had enough. Gratitude doesn't change your situation. It changes how you live in that situation. Like someone walking through the night with a small lamp. Yes, the darkness is still there, but the light keeps them from stumbling. Gratitude is that light. I've met people with only a few years left to live, and yet they smile gently, speak kindly, and radiate warmth. When I ask their secret, they don't say much. Just this: "I'm grateful for every breath I still have." You can start today. You don't have to wait until life is perfect. Before you check your phone, before you turn on the television, before the world pulls you in, pause. Place your hand on your heart and whisper to yourself, "I'm alive. I can love. I'm still learning." Just those 3 truths are more than enough to make a day complete. And you'll see, gratitude doesn't give you more things. It helps you realize you already have enough. And in a world that constantly demands more, the one who feels enough is the one truly free. You know, sometimes all it takes is to pause, do nothing, and simply breathe. And in that quiet moment, you find your way back to yourself. I once asked an elderly man during a meditation class in California, "Do you remember the last time you took a deep breath fully aware of it?" He chuckled and said, "Teacher, I breathe every day, but I don't think I've ever actually noticed I'm breathing." And that, my friend, is what so many of us go through. We breathe to survive, but we don't live with the breath. It becomes so automatic that we forget it's even there. Until something goes wrong, until we're out of breath, exhausted, or overwhelmed, only then do we realize how vital it is. In the Buddhist teachings, the breath is more than a biological function. It's the bridge between body and mind. It's the most direct, simple, and reliable path back to the present moment. In the Anapanasati Sutta, the sutra on mindfulness of breathing, the Buddha gave one of the most profound yet simple instructions. Breathe in, knowing you're breathing in. Breathe out, knowing you're breathing out. It sounds simple, but if you truly sit down, let go of thoughts, and just follow the in and out rhythm of your breath, you'll notice something beautiful happening. The mind begins to settle. No need for complex philosophies. No need to become a monk or renounce the world. If you can breathe with awareness, you're already on the path. That path isn't far away. It's right here, in this moment, in your presence, in the clarity of seeing what's real, without chasing the past or fearing the future. I remember a woman in her 50s who came to the temple while going through cancer treatment. She couldn't meditate for long, couldn't chant much, but every morning, she sat quietly by the window, placed her hand over her heart, and just breathed. When I asked what she was practicing, she said, "I don't know how much time I have left, but when I breathe, truly feel each breath, I realize I'm still alive. And in that moment, that's the most precious thing I have." That, to me, was a living Dharma talk. Many people think spiritual practice has to be something big, but the Buddha taught that even the simplest act, done with full presence, is the way. One mindful breath can save a day filled with anxiety. One complete breath can interrupt a spiral of negative thinking. One deep breath can open a door to peace you've been chasing for years. I once taught a group of middle-aged students in a meditation course. One woman shared that when angry with her kids, she often said things she regretted. I asked, "What if right before you react, you paused and took just one slow breath? What might change?" She said, "I tried it, and just one breath was enough to stop me from saying what I'd regret." I nodded. That is the power of the breath. It not only keeps us alive, it keeps us from losing ourselves. You don't need to meditate for 30 minutes every morning to be considered a practitioner. You can be washing dishes and breathing, walking down the street and breathing, listening to someone with a steady, mindful breath. In those moments, you're not being pulled by your emotions. You're not swept away by stress. You're living fully in the now. The Buddha didn't teach us to run away from life. He taught us to live deeply within it with awareness. And each breath is a bell calling you home. So, dear friend, if today you feel tired, if your heart is racing, if worries are weighing you down, pause. Don't do anything. Just sit quietly. Place your hand over your heart and take a single breath, deep, gentle, full. You don't need to travel far to find yourself. You just need to return to where the breath is, because that is your true home. And only in that home can you find real peace. Have you ever wondered, if you could start all over again, if life gave you a second chance, who would you become? Not to regret the past, but to realize that you can begin again right here, in this body, with this breath, in this very moment, just by shifting your awareness. In Buddhism, there's a beautiful and powerful practice called visualization, not for daydreaming, not to escape reality, but to plant a new seed in the mind, a seed that can grow into transformation. I remember one quiet afternoon at the temple, a man in his 50s came to see me. His face was heavy with sadness. He said, "Teacher, I don't like the man I've become. I'm quick to anger. I judge too much, and sometimes I hurt the very people I love." I listened, then gently asked, "And what kind of man do you wish to become?" He was surprised, sat silently for a while, then said softly, "I want to be a calm father, someone who listens, someone who stays grounded under pressure, someone my wife and kids can trust, can turn to when life gets hard." I smiled and told him, "Then each day, picture yourself already being that man, not hoping to become him someday, but seeing yourself as already living that way, because that seed is already inside you. You just need to water it." In Buddhist teachings, the mind is the source of all karma. Every word, every action, every habit begins with a single thought. And each time you visualize a noble quality, like compassion, patience, or steadiness, you're planting the seed for that very quality to take root. The Buddha said in the Dhammapada, "All that we are is the result of what we have thought." The mind is everything. What we think, we become. That means the image you hold in your heart about who you are will become real over time, not through force, but through steady, gentle nourishment. Imagine this. You wake up one morning, and instead of rushing into worries about what hasn't been done, you take a quiet moment to visualize yourself living with ease. You see yourself smiling through difficulty, listening with calm attention, walking slowly with mindfulness in each step. At first, it may feel unfamiliar because you haven't fully lived that way yet. But if you keep visualizing it, keep watering that vision with trust and daily practice, your heart will begin to lean in that direction. And one day, you'll notice you're no longer trying to be that person. You're already becoming them. I once taught a meditation class at a Buddhist center for older adults. One woman shared that she often felt like she wasn't good enough, not smart enough, not worthy of love. I invited her to try a simple practice. Every night before sleep, close her eyes and imagine a version of herself radiating compassion, loving, peaceful, without judgment. 3 weeks later, she came back with a light in her eyes. She said, "Teacher, I'm still me, but somehow I breathe easier. I don't scold myself as much anymore." That's what happens when the mind is gently guided in the right direction. You see, visualization isn't about pretending to be someone you're not. It's about awakening the parts of you that already exist and giving them space to grow, like a gardener tending to dry soil. Even if the ground is hard, even if the seed hasn't sprouted yet, if you water it with care, one day, that green shoot will rise. You can apply this to anything. If you long for compassion, visualize yourself embracing your own heart with gentleness. If you want patience, picture yourself calmly listening to someone without interrupting. If you want steadiness, see yourself as a strong tree, rooted and unmoved by the winds. The key is to visualize with your whole heart, not to fake it, but to call forth the sacred seed already resting within you. Dear one, you don't need to become someone else. You just need to come home to the truest version of yourself your heart has always longed for. Because maybe the person you've always wanted to be is simply waiting for you to begin with one gentle image in your mind, planted today. And when you plant the right seed, it will bloom, not by magic, but by love, and by your quiet, patient tending day by day. At some point in life, you've probably let out a deep sigh and asked yourself, why me? Why was I the one betrayed? Why did I lose the person I loved most? Why am I the one who got sick even though I've lived kindly, never harmed anyone? I've heard that question from so many people across all ages, in all kinds of situations. And truthfully, I understand that feeling. Because when pain crashes in, the first thing that often rises in our hearts is a question full of helplessness and sorrow. Why me? But you know, the Buddha never taught us to escape suffering. He taught us to understand it. And sometimes, that understanding begins simply by changing the question. Instead of asking, why is this happening to me? Try asking, what is this trying to teach me? I remember a woman in her early 60s who came to one of our fall retreats in Northern California. She had just lost her husband of over 40 years. During our conversation, she kept repeating, I lived a good life. I cared for him with everything I had. And yet, he left me. I don't understand why. I sat with her quietly for a while, then gently asked, what if, instead of asking why, you asked, what is this here to teach me? What do you see? She went still. Then tears came not from blame, but from touching a deeper truth inside herself. The fear of loneliness. The fear of not being needed anymore. From that moment on, she began reflecting more deeply. And over the following months, she slowly found a new kind of peace. Not because the pain disappeared, but because she was learning what the pain came to reveal. In Buddhism, dukkha suffering is the very first noble truth. None of us escapes it. But suffering is not the end of the story. The Buddha didn't just teach suffering. He taught the path beyond it. And that path begins with mindfulness, with the ability to look directly at what we're going through and ask wiser questions like, what is the lesson hidden inside this pain? What am I being asked to let go of? What truth have I been avoiding that now demands to be seen? Some people lose a job and learn humility. Some are betrayed and realize how long they've abandoned themselves. Some face illness and finally begin to truly live, day by day, breath by breath. I'm not saying suffering is a gift, but if we see with right understanding, suffering can become a teacher. A tough one, yes, but an honest one. A teacher that doesn't use words, but gives us the exact circumstances we need to finally face ourselves. One time, a student asked me, "Teacher, how do I know I'm truly growing on the spiritual path?" I replied, "When you stop asking why me and start asking, how can I learn and grow from this? That's how you know. Because when you ask, why me? You place yourself in the role of a victim. But when you ask, what is this teaching me? You become a student of life. And every student has the potential to grow, to rise, to awaken. In the Samyutta Nikaya, the Buddha once said that a person with right view is like someone who sees a light in the darkness, not because the night disappears, but because the light is now burning within. So if you're going through a hard season right now, I'm not asking you to feel happy. I'm simply inviting you to sit still, take one deep breath, and gently ask, what inside me needs to be heard right now? What lesson is softly knocking on the door of my life? And when you ask that, suffering is no longer a wall blocking your path. It becomes a door that leads you deeper into yourself. So next time life brings you to your knees, before you ask, why me? Try asking, maybe this is the moment. I'm being invited to stop and learn to see life with new eyes. Because when you change the question, your whole life can begin to change. Somewhere along the road of life, you were probably taught that you had to be strong, that you had to get over the sadness, that you shouldn't cry too much, that you should just pick yourself up and move on. And sometimes those lessons were wrapped in such a tough outer shell that you might have forgotten something very important. True strength doesn't mean being hard on yourself. I've met so many people, especially older folks, who carry inside them a mental ledger of everything they blame themselves for. If only I hadn't lost my temper when my child just needed love. If only I hadn't let my marriage fall apart. If only I'd been kinder to my parents before they passed. And those if onlys keep looping in their minds. Like a broken record they don't know how to turn off. But, blaming yourself doesn't make you a better person. It just makes your heart heavier. The Buddha once said, "No one in the entire universe is more deserving of your love and compassion than you are." Self-compassion doesn't mean making excuses. It doesn't mean avoiding responsibility. It means being able to hold yourself, your beautiful parts, and your broken parts with kindness and honesty. There's a powerful image in Buddhism. If you're already wounded by one arrow, you're in pain. But if you pick up another arrow and shoot yourself again, that's double suffering. The first arrow is life. It's what already happened. The second arrow is self-blame, the kind that pierces deeper and lingers for years. I once spoke with a man in his mid-60s. He told me he had never forgiven himself for all the times he failed to show love while his wife was alive. Now that she's gone, he lives like a shadow, haunted by the words he never said. I looked into his eyes and said, "You can't turn back time, but you can stop hurting yourself today. You can sit quietly, place a hand over your heart, and say something you may have never dared to say. I know I made mistakes, but I am still worthy of love." Self-compassion means beginning again at the very place where you once fell. You can imagine compassion as a gentle hand placed on your own shoulder on the days when your heart feels too heavy. It doesn't push you forward with harshness. It doesn't scream at you to try harder. It simply whispers, "I'm still here with you." Even in sadness, even in your mistakes, even in your exhaustion. And here's the miracle: when you are held in that kind of gentleness, you don't grow weaker. You grow stronger. Stronger because you don't have to pretend you're okay. Stronger because you stop tearing yourself apart over what's already done. Stronger because now you walk forward with kindness, not punishment. In the Metta Sutta, the Buddha's discourse on loving kindness, he teaches us to begin with ourselves. May I be safe. May I be healthy. May I live with mindfulness and peace. This isn't selfish. It's a sacred commitment. I won't forget to care for myself, just as I've cared for others. Because someone who knows how to love themselves with compassion will naturally love others more gently, more openly. When you stop demanding yourself to be perfect, you also stop demanding the world to be perfect. And suddenly, everything feels a little lighter. Dear friend, if today you feel like you're not enough, if you're carrying the weight of old regrets, please remember this: forgiveness is not a reward for the perfect. It's a gift for the tired heart. And that gift, you can give it to yourself right now, without needing anyone's permission, because compassion for yourself is not weakness. It's a strength, soft, quiet, but deeply, unshakably strong. Let me ask you something very simple. Have you ever found yourself doing the dishes, but in your mind, you're arguing with someone? Or maybe you're sitting down for a meal, but your thoughts are tangled up in a memory from 10 years ago? Your body is here, but your mind is somewhere else entirely. If that sounds familiar, you're not alone. It happens to almost all of us. Because the human mind, when left untrained, runs like a machine of automatic reactions. In Buddhism, this is called sankhara, mental formations, habits, conditioned responses. And most of our suffering doesn't come from what's actually happening, but from how we unconsciously react to it. I remember a student once came to me and said, "Teacher, I often snap at my husband, but the saddest part is I snap before I even realize what I'm doing. By the time I wake up, it's too late." And I gently asked her, what would happen if before reacting you just paused for a few seconds? She was quiet. Then slowly, she nodded. That pause is the key. In Buddhist practice, we call that pause mindfulness. It's the space between stimulus and response. It's when we don't immediately chase after the first thought that appears. It's when we choose not to be swept away by an emotion like a leaf in a rushing stream. Imagine your mind is a river. Every thought is a leaf floating by. If you jump after every single leaf, you'll get carried away. But if you sit on the riverbank and just watch, you begin to see clearly. Oh, that's anxiety. There's anger. Here comes an old memory. And simply seeing it without reacting is how you begin to step out of autopilot. The Buddha once said, "A mind untrained is like a monkey leaping from branch to branch, never still." To train the mind, we must learn to pause. Not stop your whole life, but just stop at the right moment. Before you react, before you speak, before you act from old patterns. I had an elderly student who fell into depression after retiring. Every morning he would wake up and his mind would begin racing. I'm useless. I have no value anymore. I'm getting old and I don't matter. So I gave him a simple practice. Whenever a thought like that arose, take a breath in and silently say, "This is just a thought." Then breathe out, "I am not this thought." That's all. And within a few weeks, he came to me and said, "Teacher, the thoughts still come, but now they don't control me anymore." You see, when we stop identifying with every thought, we begin to taste a new kind of freedom. Not the freedom to do whatever we want, but the freedom to not do what will lead to regret. In the middle-length discourses, the Buddha compares a mindful person to a gatekeeper at a city wall. The gatekeeper doesn't block everyone, he simply watches and discerns. Are you friend or foe? In the same way, a mindful person doesn't try to stop thoughts from arising. They just know which ones not to follow. Dear friend, we can't stop the wind from blowing, but we can learn not to raise our sails when the wind turns wild. Thoughts will come. Emotions will rise. Memories will resurface. But you can pause for a moment before getting swept away. And in that pause, you begin to touch something truly precious. Inner freedom. Freedom isn't something out there. It's not about controlling everyone or everything around you. Freedom begins when you're no longer a slave to your habitual thoughts. So tomorrow, if you're about to lose your temper, pause for 3 seconds. If you're about to say something you might regret, take a breath and whisper to yourself, "I have the power to choose silence." And slowly, moment by moment, you'll feel your mind open like the sky. There are clouds, but you are not the clouds. There is wind, but you are not pushed by it. There are thoughts, but they no longer command you. And that is true freedom. Not something the world gives you, but something you reclaim quietly from within yourself. There's something beautifully simple that the Buddha taught over 2,500 years ago. And even now, it still feels fresh and full of life. He said, "The mind is the forerunner of all things. With a pure mind, happiness follows like a shadow that never leaves." What that means is this: everything in your life, your joy or your suffering, begins where your mind begins. And where does the mind begin? With a single thought. Every thought, no matter how small, is like a seed you're planting into the soil of your heart. That seed grows whether you're aware of it or not. I once had a conversation with an older Buddhist practitioner. She told me that every morning, even before getting out of bed, her mind would be flooded with anxious thoughts. "Teacher," she said, "before I even open my eyes, my head is full of worries about my health, my children, regrets from decades ago." I gently asked her, "If you start every morning planting seeds of fear, what do you expect to harvest by the end of the day?" She was quiet, and then gave a bittersweet smile. "More fear, I suppose." You see, the mind is not careless. It's incredibly responsive to what you feed it. If you plant seeds of anger, jealousy, and resentment, your inner garden becomes thorny and harsh. But if you plant gratitude, understanding, and compassion, flowers begin to bloom. The mind is like the earth. It doesn't judge what you plant. It simply nurtures whatever you put into it. That's why in Buddhism, being aware of your thoughts, choosing your thoughts, is not just helpful. It's essential. People often come to me and ask why the same painful patterns keep repeating in their lives. Why every relationship ends in heartbreak. Why every effort leads to failure. Why trust always seems to be betrayed. So I ask them, what beliefs are you watering in your mind every day? And often they say, "I'm not good enough. I'm unlucky. I must be paying for mistakes from a past life." Then I tell them, If you keep feeding those beliefs, you're turning them into reality. You see, karma isn't punishment. It's simply the natural result of what we continuously nurture. A thought becomes a feeling becomes an action. Repeated actions become habits. Habits shape your character, and your character becomes your life. So if you want to change your life, you must begin at the root, with your thoughts. I often remind my students, talk to your mind each day before your mind talks to you, which means be intentional. Observe your thoughts. Plant good seeds. Don't let the weeds grow wild. You can start small. Each morning before you check your phone, think of one thing you're grateful for. When jealousy arises, whisper in your heart, I wish them well. When you feel helpless, remind yourself, I'm planting patience. It will bloom in its own time. In the Dhammapada, the Buddha says, with a joyful mind, wisdom grows. With a troubled mind, suffering follows like a cart pulled by an ox. This is not a threat, it's a loving reminder. You have the power to choose. You have the power to plant new seeds today, no matter what you planted yesterday. The mind doesn't hold grudges. It simply continues to grow what you water. So if you water understanding, the mind opens. If you water gratitude, the mind softens. If you water forgiveness, the mind begins to heal. Dear friend, if today you feel like your life is heading in the wrong direction, don't rush to blame karma or your circumstances. Just pause and ask, what thoughts am I planting in my heart each day? And if you're willing to begin again, even with the smallest seed, a kind thought, a silent blessing, one mindful breath, you are already changing the landscape of your life. Like a gentle gardener, you can clear the weeds one by one and make space for something new to grow. You don't have to rush. You just have to stay with it. Because in the end, you will always harvest what you've planted. And in that moment, you will understand the Buddha's words. The mind is like soil. Whatever you plant, you will harvest. Choose what you wish to see blossom in your life. Dear soul, life is always moving, sometimes gently, sometimes in waves. But wherever you are on your journey, if you tend to your mind with care, every day can become a new beginning. The seed you plant today, no matter how small, can grow into a radiant flower tomorrow. A kind thought, a moment of silence, a simple act of compassion. They all matter. And you deserve to live in the peace of that inner garden where you are no longer driven by old patterns, but gently awakened and rooted in love. If something in this video touched your heart today, maybe someone else needs to hear it too. So I invite you, like this video if it brought you insight, share it with someone who may need a quiet reminder. And leave a comment below what part of this video made you pause, reflect, or recognize yourself in it. I read every message you share. And if you'd like to continue planting seeds of peace in your everyday life, subscribe to Buddhism Seeds, a place where timeless Buddhist wisdom is offered gently, quietly, and with love, just like seeds finding their way home. Thank you for listening with your whole heart. I'll see you again in another quiet moment.